All right, cool. I've done the clap, so now we have officially started. I will say I had a good thought of like instead of like doing the clap, I can have like a little like intro play like over on this thing, right? Like you know
Gotta
how
write a jingle, yeah,
yeah,
or something.
like write like a little jingle, like maybe like a GIF or something like that, being like, "Oh, wait, like show starts now," kind of thing.
Yeah,
But yeah, no, didn't get the chance to really put that in. It's been a pretty busy week.
yeah.
It's one of those things where I finally accomplished getting some enemies into the arena, which is like today was actually like a pretty like awful day. So the fact that I got that in actually makes this whole day like actually way like significantly better. Uh,
That's good, yeah, and that's I know you've been working on a bunch of other things. So one was getting the enemies into the arena, but you also made a whole another enemy. So now there are three distinct enemies in the game. I guess four because there's like a subtype of this other one that you made, and so yeah. So do you want to just go into it? Talk about which one do you want to go into, like the arena enemies, or do you want to go into the ones you made in the overworld, or you know?
yeah, I think we could talk about the ones that I've made in the overworld since that's the one that you've actually played through
Mm-hmm.
and stuff like that at this point. And 11th hour hero, just in case if we've done this filmed these like 6 or 7 times kind of thing, right? I think this is like the sixth episode
Yeah.
of this podcast. Although we're doing it at night now, it's you can see it's like dark outside and stuff. So I'm actually kind of thinking maybe should be like a late night show instead. But either way, yeah, 11th Hour Hero. It's a multiplayer roguelike where you and your friends you go on to the spaceship. You gotta beat this boss all in 1 hour before the whole world like blows up, kind of thing. So I'm building this experience. I'm flying this plane while I'm building it at the same time, and yeah, if you want to try it out on the Twitch page, I have like a couple links to itch.io that you can go ahead and just download and give it a try with your friends. So yeah, with that, okay, now I've done the intro. Now we can go into the questions for sure now. So yeah, there's so basically at GDC, no, not even at GDC, right? Because I've only had placeholders there, but I wanted to like have like these, one of the if factor things was to have like these like zombie enemies come around and like try to chase you and stuff like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I was developing that. I was like, I think these would thematically fit better in the arena kind of thing where
Mm-hmm.
it's already like sand based, so you have like these half made androids kind of thing, right? Where like you can
Yeah.
kind of like you can kind of see that they're like even like manufactured like 3D printers kind of thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So with that, I wanted to move those enemies from the generated level over to the arena, which means that I then needed to fill in the generated level with like these different enemies.
Yeah.
And so one of the challenges which we've talked about with the zombie enemies is the fact that like they kind of like slide in place a little bit because the animations that they have don't match like the way the speed that they
The
move at
movement
kind of thing.
speed. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And I spent so much time over the past couple days to actually revisit that and see if I could get that working. No, I did not. I could not get that working. So they still slide around and stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, the new enemies that I put in are these like drone enemies. So essentially, they are these like small little boxes essentially with like rings on the side, and they float around. But what's really cool with these enemies is that I've added in these like the smarter AI using finite state machines where they can go from like a walking state over to like a attack state and then, well, for these drone enemies, it's actually really simple. They're either like wandering around or they're attacking you. There's like no in between kind of thing. They don't really
Mm-hmm.
chase you down at this point. And I've kind of like did that a little bit on purpose just to like, yeah, get something. I'm like, I don't want to make things like too complicated. And I also wanted to see like how far I could go with this without it being too complicated,
Okay.
if that makes sense. And turns out you can go pretty far. So at the going back to the GDC demo, there's like this room where I've always like told people I'm like, oh yeah, this is the turret room. If I had turrets, they would fire at you. and stuff. But right now, there's just placeholder things where they don't hurt you and you don't hurt them, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But now they do hurt you and you do hurt them. So you can absolutely just aim at them and shoot at them, and they're like so. That's like one type of the enemies I was able to build
Hmm.
with this flexible finite state machine that I built up. So these guys, their wander animation is nothing. They just stand there and they just, as soon as somebody gets into their line of sight, they'll like look at them. But when they're not, like they just stand there and do nothing.
Hmm.
So they don't have much of a wander state.
Yeah.
They just, yeah, I mean, it's just,
Well, this is supposed to be one of many enemies, right? So
yeah,
like not every single thing needs to be like actively hunting you down.
yeah, exactly. Like some things are just designed to like just okay, you're here to like stand guard and just protect
Hmm.
or just just alert kind of thing, right? Um, and then so yeah, so that's the for the turret enemies. That's their wander states to do nothing, and then their attack is like this burst fire where they can fire 5 bullets. Two of them are accurate. That will hit you if you don't move. Three of them are inaccurate. They will just they're designed to miss you basically, right?
Hmm.
So you only get hit by them if you actually like move around and like move into the bullet thing.
And so why'd
Yeah.
you have those two different attacks, like one accurate, one inaccurate?
Yeah, so I wanted to make like well for the burst fire, I just wanted to make sure that I felt like if he just got hit by 5 bullets in a row kind of thing without like a lot of like I feel like just like I'm not even paying attention kind of thing. Like it's good to
Hmm.
have an inaccurate one just so that way you can actually see the bullet fly past you kind of thing. And
Yeah.
so that kind of alerts you like where the if you didn't see the turret enemies before, like you actually know where you're getting fired from at that point.
Yeah.
Thing. Although they could also just go behind you too, which is would be unfortunate.
Yeah.
But that's kind of like the point of having like some inaccurate shots. And to that point, I have like another drone enemy called the scout enemy, and what they're designed is they actually do wander around. They like go from like one point to another, but only like a few feet in front of them. But if they see you and you get close enough to them, they will fire at you. But those are purposely inaccurate shots.
Hmm.
Also for the same reason to like, hey, like if you miss them, kind of thing, right? Like they're not, they're kind of like designed to be like a little bit more distractionary in that way.
Hmm.
But the thing is, it's like there's a lot more scout of these scout drones than there are turret drones, kind of thing. And the reason, and so when you have a lot of scouts and they're all firing at you, kind of thing, like maybe like yeah, maybe you're trying to dodge one scout, right? And you're like, okay, I'll just stand still and not get hit by this guy, right?
Uh huh.
But while you do that, another scout drone might come around and actually hit you, kind of thing, right? Or
Hmm.
if you're like moving around, you then end up getting hit by these
Yeah,
guys,
maybe
kind of
putting
thing.
yourself in harm's way. Yeah, I like that because I mean, I think like obviously as more enemies are gonna be coming in, like these types of games, you're definitely not supposed to like stand still very often, right? So
Yeah.
I think the inaccurate shots maybe like seem a little bit unintuitive now when you don't have like a ton of enemies in the game and a ton of things like kind of like flying at you. But I think as other things come in, it's like that will find its spot of being like, oh, these enemies, this is like their thing. Like sometimes they hit me, sometimes I run into their shots, kind of thing.
Right.
And I always have to, it's just like an added level of like difficulty to have to try to avoid. So yeah, so I like that. I think that was a really good idea. So
Yeah, and these are only like 2 drone enemies that I put in. I
mhm.
feel like it's one of those things where I actually like doing this podcast, like slash game show, because I feel like as I'm talking through it now, I'm like actually starting to think of like some other like drones that I can do, right? And so I've like when I was making these attacks, like I actually coded up like 5 different attacks that drones could do, but right now there's only 2 drones and each drone only has one attack. So there's like 3 attacks that's
Mhm.
actually like just going unused right now. One of them is like a shotgun blast. That's actually probably not even the correct wording for it because what it does is that it just like it fires one accurate shot, one shot that goes like a little bit angled like this, and then another
Mhm.
one that's a little bit angled like that. So like the
Okay.
closer you are to it, you'll like get hit by all three. But
Okay.
the farther away you are from it, you're most likely only gonna get hit by that centered shot kind of thing.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
Um,
Okay.
but yeah, like and so when you mix in these different drones that have different attacks, different ways of wandering around, and then other like specifics like other traits like how fast they move or how much health they have.
Yeah.
There's a lot of variety with just those like five simple parameters basically.
Yeah.
So it makes it where it's like okay, like um, I think eventually I'm gonna have to like really have to think like about like how like if I want to do something like a Left 4 Dead situation, right, where you're on the ship
Hmm.
and you like have to like basically like you're on like a you're already on like a 1 hour timer, so it could actually be pretty advantageous to like actually have like some like as the time progresses, you have like these different waves that come out and seek you out, and maybe like the longer that you're in the level, like you're at like you fight like harder enemies kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
To kind of like, and that might actually give people like a pretty good gauge of like how close they are to like actually like you're like oh shit, like I should probably like get a move onto this boss thing kind of thing, right?
Hmm.
And so then it's like a trade off of like okay, like you want to explore more of the ship while try to get everything that you can get out of it, right? But at the same time, if you're having to fight these hard waves, and then on top of that, still have to have enough resources to go onto the boss and fight the boss, right?
Hmm.
Like that's like a pretty interesting, like a bunch of decisions that the players like kind of have to make at that point. And that's like as simple as just basically just like throwing enemies at the
Yeah.
player, right? Like that's not really that difficult to make, honestly. Right? It's just more
Yeah.
about having the variety, making sure that it's not like too predictable or like too boring, I guess. Right? Because I feel like if you're fighting against the same waves of stuff like consistently, like it's gonna feel same old, like kind of quickly a little bit.
Yeah. I think you could bring up a couple good points. You've already got the like hard boundary of like you have an hour to do this. That is like a hard constraint that you are putting in that they have to whatever like meet in some way, right? But yeah, I remember in Left 4 Dead, I always remember there is like a timer of like just like a regular horde will come and get you,
Mm-hmm.
like if you're just kind of like dilly dallying around for however long, right? I don't know how exactly they like time that up, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I always have that in the back of my head, right? And then there's also like the special zombies that can come out and get you. But yeah, it's like you're actually putting a lot of the decision making in the player's hands
Mm-hmm.
without hand holding them or like forcing a lot of things. Like
Yeah.
you just kind of have like this setup, this environment that they like feel like they should make these decisions. They don't have to, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because then you got to find the balance of like, okay, they don't want to expend all their resources, but they also know the farther in they get, the better loot they'll get, kind of thing. So,
Yeah.
or better power ups and all that stuff, or upgrades. Um, so the more you can just build out that environment and then let them just basically like get to decide and have there be like a lot of different ways that you can play it well, right? It's
Yeah.
not like you have to play this in a certain way because then it wouldn't be very fun, not very replayable.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of the replayability is also going to come into like the abilities that you can pick up,
Yeah.
which I definitely need to start getting a move on for actually including at this point. Um, like the beginning of this month, I have this initiative of getting like five new boss attacks,
Hmm.
five new player abilities. And I say new, I actually don't mean new. I actually supposed to mean like five total player abilities and five total boss attacks and five staged rooms. Those are my big development goals, in which I feel like if I get those in, then I have a really strong MVP that I can like. I don't really have to like. Yeah, I should be able at that point. I can make a really good devlog. I could be like, oh yeah, I quit my job to do this, and this is what
Yeah.
it looks like after 5 months of development. January, February, March, April, May. Yeah, that would be 5 months of development kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so I think at that point I would feel pretty good about okay, like that's a good amount of time. This is a good test. Let's see what happens with it, kind of thing, right? and and really just kind of move on like just okay, like get some good feedback kind of thing, right? Like some things that what are some course corrections I can make versus okay, it's like full speed, like we're going down this path like for real for like the next like few months.
Yeah. And I know we've talked about like the multiplier effect with your game, basically with all these things, right? But I mean, yeah, like one more ability, one more weapon, one more enemy attack, like all those things just like really add. It's not just like a one single thing you're adding. It's like it's actually interaction with all these other things that you're really adding. And I feel like yeah, once you just get a solid set of a handful of each of one of those things, you actually kind of have like a very like a much more fleshed out game than what would maybe just like appear if you just explained it like that, right?
Yeah,
And then that's when you can start like doing the play testing like even harder, and then really like that's when you'll really know if you like kind of getting the secret sauce, like you're kind of like hitting it or not.
hmm
And then if not, you know what I mean, then you just need to like be like, okay, well, what's feeling bad, right? And
yeah. What's
start.
feeling bad, or even like what's like exactly missing, kind of thing. Like,
Yeah.
and the other thing is like, so right now I feel like in some ways it can kind of feel like a little bit generic. It's just
Hmm.
like as in like there's plenty of games that have, like Left 4 Dead, right? Like you could just play Left 4 Dead essentially, right?
Hmm.
And so it's a okay, like what what's the secret sauce that is gotta be a little bit like why would you play this game like over like Left 4 Dead kind of thing, right? Or even just alongside it. I
Hmm.
mean, I do not think I'm like in competition with a lot of these things because I'd still would like to play Left 4 Dead too. I mean,
Yeah.
but I could, but it's like I could play this game and I can play that game rather
Yeah.
than like either or kind of thing.
But yeah, I mean, but at the end of the day, when you think about Left 4 Dead, it's like, okay, yeah, they've got their special zombies, right? But there's only like so many. There's not
Yeah,
like
I
50
think there's
different.
like five,
Yeah, it's
right?
like
They got
five or
the
something like that, right?
yeah.
And then a lot of the other ones are just like the basic zombies. And so
Hmm.
it's like for you, I think it's like right now you're trying to get into a pretty good spot where you have like the base, game in terms of like, all these different aspects, like base enemies. And then we'll play it. And then, I think then it'll be like, okay, let's actually like do something like a little bit more unique with it, right? And that'll take a
Yeah,
little bit more thinking, but you can't really like, you could do that now, but it's not going to have the same impact because you don't have like the basic enemy, you don't have the basic kind of like level difficulty in it. So
yeah.
it's like, oh, you can have this interesting enemy, but it becomes around everything becomes focused around that instead of that kind of being like, oh, this is like a special enemy that like really adds a lot of fun, or a
Yeah,
different. You
and
have to play
that's
this game in a different way
yeah,
and
that's
stuff.
been like kind of like the tough thing of like it sucks that like I've spent like even before January, I spent like a lot of time
Hmm.
on like actually just learning how to like build a multiplayer game kind of thing, right? This randomly generated level. Just during the boss attack, I mean, just during a couple of those first boss attacks, right? And like having the luck of that boss like actually looked pretty decent.
Yeah.
So a lot of work has gone into it, and yet at the same time, it's like okay, like I still have to show people what it currently is and be like okay, well just pretend if this thing was in place
Yeah.
like how would you feel kind of thing, right?
Uh huh.
But it's like it sucks that I still at this point would have to like kind of ask for people to kind of like suspend their belief a little bit kind of thing
Hmm.
too.
I mean, I think it's getting
Yeah,
a lot closer. I mean,
yeah,
I see it. I see the game every week. About and I think this last month it's like starting to turn a corner on like a lot of different things, right?
yeah,
I mean, it's like just the fact that you just have more enemies now, and it's like you've got some other things that you're working on that like we said that it's like visually or on the outside it's like you just kind of take it for granted, but like multiplayer, like having two people see the same things, having the generated levels, I mean that
yeah.
took like a lot of work, and you're doing everything from scratch too, so it's just like it's always going to be the startup's always going to be like slower, but hopefully
Yeah,
we're
yeah.
starting
Once
to
you
kind
get
of.
like a good base and stuff, yeah, it'll be interesting to see like once we get once a base is in there and once it starts like really exponentially growing, to see. what happens if like a pivot is needed, right? Like, oh, something's like clearly missing from this thing, like maybe like a system mechanic, or maybe there's already stuff in here that is actually just like not serving the game very well, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So take it out, kind of thing, right? So when that happens, like how quickly can I actually do that, like without breaking a whole bunch of other things that already work
Yeah.
in the game, kind of thing. It is like one of those ironic things about software is that the foundation pieces are like really important, and like the more that you build on a software project, the less flexible things end up like being, kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
And that's even if you're like thinking about how to do things like pretty flexible, kind of thing, right? And it's like it's also a weird place of like, okay, yeah, I'm definitely trying to build things like pretty fast. Like I'm not trying to dilly dally here, kind of thing, right? Although I will say I do wake up pretty late in the mornings nowadays, so
um,
yeah, I could
yeah.
definitely be a little bit better about like actually getting the day started a little bit.
Yeah. That I mean, I don't know, that's fine. You've been doing this for a while, but so let's talk a little. So you've been putting all these enemies, right? We've been talking about like base level of game, right? Because about like your basic enemy, and then one of the things we've also been talking about is like kind of more in the future when we're play testing heavily is the difficulty scaling, right?
Mhm.
Because this is kind of like a roguelike game where you're meant to be doing it multiple times, right? But it also needs to also get harder. If it's always the same level, it won't be very fun after a very short amount of time.
Yeah.
So I know you were like looking up some other stuff, and when you were talking about these finite, systems with the enemies and all that stuff. But could you talk a little bit more about how you're thinking about scaling the difficulty?
Yeah, and so I think that leads up into this GDC talk that I actually wanted to go to while I was at GDC this past year,
Mm-hmm.
and I caught the tail end of the talk, but just enough where I could like get the contact information for. I think her name is Mayor, like Mayor Mel or something like that.
Okay.
I'll in the description of this podcast, I'll definitely put down the details of her talk and stuff like that where you can see it. But yeah, I ended up being because I'm a Meta like Horizon Start member.
Mm-hmm.
I actually have access to to the GDC vaults, where I can look at
Nice.
any previous GDC talk. So it's great because like there's so many talks I missed out on while I was there, and hers was one of them. Right, so she worked on Left 4 Dead and a bunch of other games, and so one of the key takeaways I got from watching her talk was that the way that they thought about scaling up the game, scaling up the difficulty. So they try to like work in curves, kind of thing, which you can definitely feel in Left 4 Dead, where there's like definitely lots of lulls where you're just like you're not really challenged all that much, right? And
Mm-hmm.
again, it gives
Yeah.
you a lot of like space to breathe. But then like a horde will spawn in, right? Or you have like these special enemies come in, and so what happens is what they're doing is like they have like a director, which I think a lot of people are already pretty familiar with, right? Um, and just wanted to double check the mic. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so they have a director. A lot of people are familiar with, but what I've learned is that the director basically has a budget of like say like $100, and each like zombie, each special zombie, uh, they all have a associated price with them,
Mm-hmm.
and so they'll like on the first fight, they will be like, okay, director, you have $100, spend the $100 as much as you can, right? And so they use a greedy algorithm to create their packs of zombies essentially. So greedy meaning that they'll like take the most expensive, purchase the most expensive guy right first,
Mm-hmm.
and then as soon as they can't like you know buy those guys, they'll start like going to the cheaper guys until they've spent all their money, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, maybe not the most efficient thing technically, right? But it might work out. It doesn't have to be the most efficient thing, right?
Yeah.
And so yeah, so the director spends the budget, creates the zombies, and if like say if the whole party dies, right? Then like they could die from that first fight, right?
Yeah.
And if that happens, then the whole thing restarts, and now they're like, okay, we're gonna reduce the budget that the director has at that point. And so they'll do that until the player, like the team, like beats that wave, kind of thing, goes on to the next thing, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so there's like a couple parameters. They can adjust the budget that the director has. They can also adjust the time in between fights, and so like they can extend out the lulls as well. And
Mm-hmm.
so what they do is that they're not just like measuring like there's a probably like a bunch of things that they can measure like during these fights,
Mm-hmm.
like how long it takes to get through through these fights, kind of thing, right? They can measure like the amount of health that each player has at this point, how many health packs that they've got equipped,
How many hits
how
they've
much,
taken?
yeah,
Yeah.
how many hits they've taken. Well, that would be their health, right? But like also like how much ammo they have left, like from their guns, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so what, all that stuff informs their algorithm that really just adjusts this one parameter, the budget thing, which is used to like then figure out how much money the director has for the next fight. And so that's like one way of how they calculate it. And like sometimes with this budget, well, I said they put a price on each zombie. Sometimes it's more like they put a price on a pack of stuff. And so
Mm-hmm.
they like if they have a couple like zombie enemies that they know synergize really well, they'll be like, okay, like if this guy is spawned, this guy must also be spawned too. And the culmination price of that together is like X amount, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Um, and so the other thing, so I think when it comes to my game, I think like here I can probably start it pretty simple, but I do think like having like that one budget like parameter in mind, I think is actually like a really good idea, because that is something that where you can like kind of scale the like the difficulty dynamically at that point.
Yeah. Dynamic difficult. Yeah.
Yeah,
I think that's really good.
I think the issue, not even like an issue, but I think just the big thing to figure out is what should the first initial budget should be, and not only the first initial budget, but maybe even like the budget depending on like how many players are actually in the level. So
Mm-hmm.
right now I have it where a max of 4 people can play the game at this point. But I mean, I don't know. I can always adjust that. I think it's more about just I have no idea, like what, like if I have like 6 or 7 or 8 people in there, kind of thing. I don't know if that's going to like blow up somebody's computer, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, I hope that doesn't. It's that stuff, the
Yeah.
decent stuff.
Well, that's an interesting thing. Yeah, I know dynamic difficulty has been a thing for a little bit. I know Resident Evil 4, I think the original, but also the remake too. They do a lot of similar things where they can see how much you've gotten hit, how much ammo you have, like how accurate you are is one thing. And that's maybe not as relevant for this game because it's not about ammo conservation, but Resident Evil is definitely like about ammo conservation. So
Mm-hmm.
it's like if you actually hit all your shots, then you're like a better player in quotes,
Yeah, yeah,
and so therefore the difficulty is going to be harder. Um, and like yeah, there just maybe a few more enemies. They may hit a little bit harder, all that stuff. But yeah, going back to your thing about the what is it, dynamic difficulty kind of scaling, it's like yeah, with the 4 people that does introduce a interesting twist, because what happens if one person is really good, one person's really bad? Are you like scaling based off the best person, or like the average of everyone, right? Because it's like if you go towards the best person, well maybe they can still handle it,
yeah,
but then if there 3 other people are going down very often, is not very fun for the one person has to revive them and the people are going down all the time.
yeah.
So it's an interesting question, and you don't want to have anything be too wacky because it's like okay maybe the worst player can get hit one more time or something. But it's like if they're like have too egregious a handicap or something like that, then
Mhm.
it's like it feels I think too jarring for like oh how come I can survive this but this other person can't survive that, right? If they
Yeah,
so I
I mean,
think it's like an interesting question, interesting thing to think about.
yeah, I think it's
Um,
I mean, just piggybacking off of that, right? Like, I haven't. Well, these are great questions. I'm glad we're recording this because I'm not going to remember all this stuff. I'm like this is like I'm like 5 steps ahead of like where I'm currently at right now, and I'm just thinking about just putting in the most stupid and but simple stuff in
well,
for
you
the
gotta
short
start
term,
with
right?
that, and then you gotta
Yeah,
You
yeah, but
know,
I think, but these are
change it when it feels
really
bad.
good questions to ponder because, so like yeah, like I was thinking like, I think in the Left 4 Dead thing they did a, they gave each person like a rank, right, depending on like
Hmm.
all the things that like the health, ammo, etc. thing that they had on them, right. I wonder if they also had a rank for like just tracking like how good they've been in previous games too and stuff like that, right?
Yeah,
And
definitely.
have
Yeah.
that counted for like when you just play against like random people, kind of like
Hmm.
almost like have an elo kind of thing, right? But it is a co-op game. I'm not even sure if that's even like really all that mm, like uh, useful. Not even useful, but like I'm not sure how much that really matters to a
It may be
degree.
about your teamwork more than your individual skill, anyways, in your past
Yeah,
performances. So,
and that would be great. And how do you measure good teamwork? Is like that's
yeah,
actually a really good question.
yeah. I mean, one of the things you may not have the access to is like their voice comms. Like maybe you have that, but like how do you quantify that into like being
Yeah,
how good they are? Left for Dead, it's like yeah, when you're playing with someone on the couch, like you can tell them, oh, hey, this guy's got me, like I can't move. Like obviously your friend will come help you if he's right there, but if you're playing online with a rando, you could say that, but the other person may not like listen,
yeah.
right? And so
But
it's like, how can you quantify that?
I also wonder if it would be a like a when I think about scaling the enemies, right? I wonder if scaling means adding in adding in the not like instead of fighting 5 enemies, you fight 10 enemies,
Hmm.
or you don't add any enemies, but you make the five of them that are in the game like just stronger.
Yeah, i mean I mean that's a good question.
Because I feel like the numbers can like overwhelm people for sure, right?
Hmm.
But you can, I don't know if I'm going to be like increasing like in health or all that stuff all that much. Who knows, right? I mean, that could be like a player ability, right? But I wonder if like people that have like built up like their toughness, right? If they would, if they would appreciate it, if you end up making the enemy stronger, so that way,
Hmm.
like you're like, oh, I'm trying to be a bullet sponge, but it doesn't seem to matter because
Yeah,
these enemies are stronger, right?
I think when you start getting to that, I think that is a good question. I think it's maybe a little bit of both, but I think the way to think about it is maybe think about your constraints. And the constraints that I see with those two things, it's like there is processing power towards how many enemies you can have, entities like floating around.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, that's one thing, and you want to have good performance too. So maybe you could have this is the upper limit, but really you want to have something below that so
Mm-hmm.
everything runs smoothly. There's that, and then also it's like, and one thing I think about a lot is like visual clutter.
Yeah,
So it may not even just be like enemies, right? But you have some of those like flying drones around.
yeah,
If you have like 100 of them shooting bullets, like yeah, it's hard to dodge them, but it's like your entire screen is just like
yeah.
lasers
Look up,
coming, and it's like
yeah,
okay, that's like too much to you know like have fun with.
yeah,
And because maybe you can survive it because you're so buffed up, right, and you can get through it. But if it's just like if it takes out the like, oh, it's not even worth it to dodge this because there's just so many around. Might as well tank a few. And it's like, well, is that
yeah,
actually how you want the gameplay to be?
yeah, yeah,
So I think it'll be something like you probably have like a range of like, oh, these are like how many enemies there should be, lows, easy, highs, but there's not. It doesn't keep on going all the way up.
yeah, yeah. I think
And then to if you want to keep on making it more difficult, you hit the max people you want to have on the screen, and then you like okay, tweak their health damage a little bit, stuff like that.
yeah, I think that it's gonna be okay. Yeah. Okay. Sorry. Let me try to use my words here a little bit. I know from working on a maritime arena and
Uh huh.
showing that off to like a bunch of people, like once you got to like 6 or 7 enemies, like that started getting like really overwhelming for a lot of people.
Hmm.
Like in VR, like the field of view is a lot smaller too. Like
It's
technically,
harder to look around
yeah,
too.
it's
Like,
harder to look around, especially with that wire in the back of your head. But we don't really have that problem that way. But even then, it's like once you get to that much enemies, like you can only really focus on like maybe like two or three at a time kind of thing way.
hmm.
And so then you have to store all those other enemies like and where they are spatially like in your head. And once you get you know, past like 6 or 7, you just can't remember everybody kind of thing,
Yeah.
right? And then you kind of like get into this overwhelmed panic mode. So what I would be curious is when you're playing multiplayer, right, with 4 people, like is it where like everybody can keep track of like 5 or 6 enemies kind of thing? So maybe like 30 is the max, or like 24 is the max, right?
Hmm.
Of enemies that you have on the thing, right? Or does the 4 people that you play with already count into that like number? And
Yeah.
so it's like, yeah, actually you can only maybe have only 3 enemies basically.
I
Uh,
think I think uh, if there's no friendly fire, then I'm pretty sure you could. I find you could probably discount your friend because if you can't hurt them, they can't hurt you.
yeah,
Doesn't matter if hey, I'm trying to shoot this guy, but I'm gonna 180 immediately after I kill him and shoot this other guy. If I know my teammate's behind me, it doesn't matter if he's actually behind. I don't even need to know if he's exactly right behind me because friendly fire, like there's no friendly fire, I can't hurt him, right?
yeah, yeah.
If there is friendly fire, then I think they would consider them a little bit more. So
Yeah, I feel like I definitely want friendly fire in my game. I feel
Mhm.
like one of the best, like one of the feelings I really want to capture in this game is like the Halo. You're like somebody has a shotgun and you're both in an elevator and you're just like killing each other because you want because both
yeah,
people want the shotgun kind of thing. What?
yeah,
And so I really want to capture that feeling. I think it also some of like the Mario games where
yeah.
like you can
Yeah.
only get that green star if you work together, but only one person can get it. So,
So
yeah,
you're like
like
jumping on each other's heads and
yeah,
stuff.
yeah. So
Yeah,
you're like
sacrificing the
you're like
missions.
you're reluctantly working together and also trying to screw each other over at the same time. It's like a really fun dynamic, right? Because you still have to beat the level,
Yeah,
but it's those little extra things where it's like, yeah, I
I
feel
actually
like
like that idea. I think that yeah.
yeah, I don't know how to pull that off. like I straight up I want to do it, but yeah, maybe I need to just play Mario and just to see like how many I could just straight up copy just like what they have on like on
Yeah,
trying to
well,
accomplish those things, right?
I think the one thing that we haven't really talked about too much, and I don't think this would be like, well, actually, I don't know because the game is so still in an early stage, but you're making this base game and this base gameplay, right? But you can also have all these little set pieces, and I mean little set pieces. It's not like like a room could have like a kind of like a shtick to it where it's like, yeah, you need to do something specific. Like, yeah, maybe there is a green star, and it's set up in a way that you can bounce on people's heads and jeopardize the mission, right? But
You're
you
right.
get the green star if you get it or whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
So I mean, and I think I know you're trying to design certain rooms, but I think that was more towards of just like varying the terrain and like some other
Yeah, yeah,
things
like
just to
have
make it a
like
little
some
bit
like
more.
cause and effect kind of thing, right? Like have really make sure that you're with the actions that you do like throughout the game like actually matter kind of thing,
Yeah,
right?
and I know you've talked about like players making like moral decisions and stuff like that. So I think there's like a whole another level of designing this game with like yeah, like certain rooms have their set pieces of like doing certain things that I think you could absolutely bring what you're talking about in.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, I
Yeah,
think it's all very exciting stuff. I
yeah.
think you're well on your way to your goals this month of putting in
Yeah,
a little bit of like new boss attacks, new enemies, new rooms.
yeah, yeah.
So
Well, we'll see. I feel like, going back to the drone enemies, right? I wanted those drone enemies because I wanted to take the zombie android enemies and put them into the boss arena. I want to do that because that's basically is a boss attack. It's just the boss dives into the sand, so something like whirls up kind of thing, right? Maybe add in some fog or something. Like all that stuff is polished that I'm probably not going to get to for
yeah,
this thing, right? But I'm like, but the point is that yeah, these androids they come up, they spawn in, and now while you're fighting this boss, you now also need to manage like how you're actually moving around, making sure that you're like
yeah,
not interacting with these zombie androids. Or when you do, you're trying to kill them because they're like they're they'll crawl real fast to you and
yeah.
get you kind of thing. So one of those things where it's more like designed to be more distractionary than anything, right? But like I feel like right now, like you kind of just like you're just waiting for the boss to like come down and do her attack and dodge it, so that way it goes into its recharge state, kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
And so hopefully with with the zombie stuff in there, they'll make it where like people are they're not just like sitting and waiting. They actually have things to shoot at technically, right? But also just like some things to avoid, kind of thing. Like just another thing too that they have to keep track of essentially
Yeah.
in this fight. And it's going to be one of those things where it could like overwhelm people too, which I think would be good. I think it's just like another challenge.
Yeah.
And I also think adding in these challenges like this, I think also kind of gives a little bit more direction on where some of the on what player abilities could be added in, or even some like new stuff. So like
Hmm.
eventually something like a that would manage like crowd control, I think would be like a good thing. Not even saying like something like an aggro thing, but even just something like a throwable grenade, like could be something like that could be added
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
that could like just take out multiple things at a time. And so like not just guns and stuff like that. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah.
But yeah, so
Yeah.
it's exciting stuff. I feel like once I get we'll see when the new build comes out.
Hmm.
Maybe tomorrow. Yeah, that would be pretty exciting. I think for everybody involved and stuff. I might stream that and stuff.
Yeah.
Because the zombies can get spawned in. So now I just need to make sure that the boss can be the one to decide to like when these enemies spawn in, kind of thing. So with that would be three boss attacks are in there.
Nice.
So then I only got two more to go
Yeah.
for this month. So I already have ideas for the new boss attacks. One of them is one where the like instead of like going along the ground, the worm thing kind of like goes to the side and like rushes across, but in the air, and like kind of like spawns off all these like grenades and stuff like that. And so it's
Okay.
like a okay, yeah, now you
Carpet
gotta
bomb.
yeah, carpet bomb. Like you gotta like like dodge these landmines kind of thing, right? Yeah, maybe they should actually just be landmines where they don't go off right away, but they
Ooh.
only go off when you like run over them or something like
Yeah.
that.
That could be good.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, then you have to remember where they actually are, kind of
Yeah.
thing. That would be good, I think. And then the last one I was thinking was like how like in Master Hand, like they got that like the laser from the
Yeah.
laser fingertip kind of thing, right? I think something like that where like the worm is like on the side, like it opens up its mouth kind of thing, right? And then just sends off like a bunch of lasers that like like that people can dodge and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
this would be like one of the few attacks that you could actually like if you get good at dodging things, you can actually just like fire like right at the boss, like and where you don't have to like wait for the recharge thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, those are the two that I have in mind that I want to build. But I'm probably gonna throw up like a micro poll or something like that on the Discord. If you haven't been on the Discord yet, there is on Twitch now. I don't have the ad on the stream anymore because I actually have it as a picture under
Hmm.
my on my Twitch channel, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, like
Oh yeah,
so
it's not covering up my face. I feel
yeah,
like
yeah,
what was it?
yeah. Now only the Twitch chat.
Wazowski from the Monsters Inc. where
Yeah.
they like he's on the
It's
magazine
like, wow,
cover
look
and
at
it's
that.
like
That's me.
yeah,
I'm right
yeah.
there. It's like, yeah.
Um,
Yeah, my bad. I didn't get a
no,
chance
no,
to do
it's
like a
fine.
horizontal ad thing. I might still try to do something. I
Yeah.
think like a green screen behind us would be pretty cool to do, but I have no idea how to do that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm thinking on the Discord, I'll probably put up like a micro poll on like, hey, like, what boss attacks should I add in, or like, I'm like, if you have an idea, feel free to let me know. If you have one right now, you can just spill your guts out, kind of thing too.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think I like the mines in the sand. I think, the more you can use the sand, I think is like a unique ground setting like in the game right now. So maybe it's like it's not like whack a mole, right? But he could be like, popping up, go back down, like like ground shakes, he pops up over here. Ground shakes, he pops up over
Mm-hmm.
here. Or I mean, this is like rip off from like Wind Waker, but like he does a little like kind of like a whirlpool of like sand that sucks you in or something like
Uh huh.
that.
Yeah.
Um, in certain areas, I'd have to think about it a little bit more. But I mean, I think using the sand because it already burrows in and comes out, right? But
Yeah.
maybe make that more attack aggressive based. I think that could be cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
Force them to move. So
Yeah. I could see that actually because like it would be a like right now players do like or at least when I say players it's mostly just me. I do wait for like the boss to just like come up kind of thing like once it's done its attack in the middle, so it might be like a pretty good psych out if you feel it shaking and then you're like, oh wait a second, it's like not coming out from the middle anymore,
mhm.
and then you're like, okay, shoot, I gotta leave where I'm at kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Good ideas. I think we've gone pretty long on this episode. So
Yeah,
is
yeah.
there anything else you want to say before we wrap it up?
I don't think so. I
Okay.
think well, we'll say yeah. If you haven't liked and subscribed on the podcast on YouTube, you should definitely do that. I think I'm not the best at like looking up all the stats and stuff like that, but I think we have a pretty good time during this
Yeah.
and stuff, and I always enjoy talking and like reflecting a little bit as we go through this stuff. Yeah, join the Discord. Discord is fun. I'm looking for ways to make the Discord, I think, more engaging, like as in just like having a little bit more fun. So I'm actually probably gonna go onto the Discord now to play some Clair Obscura since that's a excellent game.
Yeah.
I just started up pretty recently and stuff. Definitely want to get back onto that game. And yeah, and then yeah, try out 11th Hour Hero. It's up on itch.io. There are instructions to play the game on the church page. And then on YouTube, I'll make sure to put it in the description as well. And yeah, just still don't have a sign off or anything like that. But
All
yeah,
right.
like this was a lot of fun. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Thanks, guys, for listening.
thank you everybody.
All right.
See you all on the next one.